Okay. Now today we'll talk about the medicine and the alum being used as medicine or for other purposes, and then we'll talk about dentistry of Mesopotamian people. Now, when we talk about the medicine, going back to thousands of years, of course, we can only talk about the herbal medicine, the medicine that we obtained from herbs or plants, but we did not extract any chemicals. We just, in those days, the people used the herbs, the plants, directly as medicine. Like in Turkish, we call kocakarı ilacı. The origin of kocakarı ilacı in Anatolia comes from Mesopotamia, because the first people who treated patients had mixed various plants together and then hoped that it would cure the patient. Therefore, when we talk about medicine, we have to talk about the herbal medicine first. But of course, the herbal medicine did not start with Mesopotamians. It was started to be used thousands of years ago. As far as we know, the oldest herbal medicine dates back to 70,000 years ago. And there is a cave in Pakistan. It's called Shanidar Cave. And in that cave is in Zagros Mountains in Iran. And the people who lived around 70,000, we call them Neanderthals. Do you know the difference between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens or modern people? Do you know anything about Neanderthals? What kind of people were they? They look like us, or were they different? Or do you know when they appeared and when they disappeared and when Homo sapiens appeared? The modern humans, do you know when we appeared? Around 50,000 years ago. So when we talk about 70,000 years ago, we are talking about not Homo sapiens, but we are talking about Neanderthal. Their appearance was quite different than us. But they were humans. They were not animals. They were not monkeys. Because in the old days, when they excavated the caves or graves, when they found out some monkeys, they thought they were early humans. But there's a big difference between the monkeys and human beings, even Neanderthals or us. There are distinct differences on the faces, on the body. So Neanderthals are somewhere in between. For many years, we thought that the Neanderthals just disappeared. We speculated, maybe until about 40, 50 years ago, we said that when we appeared as Homo sapiens, modern man, we killed them all, Neanderthals. Or somehow they just became distinct, they just disappeared. But later, and we said that they did not mix with us. But all of you, and including me, we all contain about 10% Neanderthal genes. Later on, in a cave, they found that Homo sapiens, us, plus Neanderthals, they were buried in the same grave, meaning that they lived together. But later on, they found out many other caves that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, which is us, lived together. And then, after careful analysis, they found out that we have in our genes 10% to 5% from Neanderthals. So they are mixed with us. But they lived much longer than us, because we've been on the planet for about 50,000 years, or maybe slightly more. But they lived more than 150 years on the planet. So they were the longest living humans on Earth. So they are important people. Okay, so in the cave, in the Shanidar cave, they found 8 different herbs or plant pollens, and we are sure that they were using these plants as medicine because we use 7 of them today. In all over the world, many people use those 7 plants as medicine even today. So we are sure that the first herbal plants, as far as we know, dates back to 70,000 years ago. Now, here we can see the differences between the human beings and Neanderthals. This is Neanderthal, and this is us, Homo sapiens. Now, if you look at it, this is very important. All monkeys and all the animals, they do not have a chin like this. This is out, all right? Like here. But it goes like this. No, nothing like, and the cheeks. Monkeys or dogs, animals, they do not have cheeks like us. The cheekbone. Elmacık kemiği. And also, when you look at the head, it looks like an egg. But our egg is almost round. And also, when you look at our forehead, it's straight. But the animals, it goes like this. They don't have the frontal lobe. So they cannot act like us. They are not as smart as us. They don't have the front. It's very important. The frontal lobe in the brain is very important. So they do not have place for that. Also, in human beings, our skeleton is so shaped that our skeleton starts here with the backbone here. But in the animals, it comes to the end like this. So when you look at dogs or monkeys, they go like this because our skeleton is just like an apple candy. It's like an apple. But for them, they are attached like this, so therefore they always move like this. All the monkeys go like this. And can you say any other difference between us and the skeleton of the monkey is very apparent? Var mı aklınıza gelen bir şey? The difference between us and the monkeys, when you look at them, you can easily tell about their arms, right? Their arms almost touch the ground, right? Our arms are shorter than theirs. So there are many differences. So sometimes people say that we found a preliminary human, but people don't understand how can you make that? Because if you know all these differences, and we are not anthropologists, but anthropologists, when they look at a skeleton, this is human, this is not. So now I'm sure that you will have a chance to differentiate humans and animals. Okay. Any question about the Neanderthals anymore? Okay, it's very clear, I hope. Now, a Turkish scientist, Ceren Kabukçu in England, in the University of Liverpool, she just recently discovered that in the same cave, in Shanidar cave, she discovered that there was food left from 70,000 years. So the people who cooked food 70,000 years ago, they left it in the cave, when they died probably, but it is charred. When we say charred, it means kömürleşmek, charred. So when you have some organic material left for many years, sometimes they get charred. So does anyone know what charring is? It's a chemical word. When you burn something, organic compound, you convert it to carbon dioxide and water molecules. But when it's charred, something else happens. What is the condition to char an organic compound which should not be burned? Var mı fikir? So that it doesn't disappear, it doesn't turn into carbon dioxide and water. So you have an organic compound, you have carbon, you have hydrogens, and maybe some nitrogen, maybe some sulfur. From this you produce CO2 plus H2O by burning. What is the meaning of burning? Burning an organic compound means? Oxidation. Huh? Oxidation. Yeah. Heat and oxygen. So in order to char organic compound without burning, so what do you have to do? You have to remove what? You have to remove something not to let it burn. That is, you have to keep the oxygen out to char an organic compound. If you do not have oxygen but you heat it up to very high temperatures, it doesn't burn because there is no oxygen. So the organic compound in the cave, in many graves and many caves, we find some organic compounds which is charred, so it burned without oxygen. Maybe it was just by the fire, and the fire produces lots of carbon dioxide. Under the carbon dioxide, that compound the temperature of that compound goes up to very high temperatures, but it doesn't burn, it's charred. So kind of burning without oxygen, it is called char. You heat it up to the same temperature, but it's charred, okay? Charcoal, you see, charcoal. Charcoal means wood converted to char. That's called charcoal, odun kömürü. What do? You put lots of woods. You make sure that you produce some carbon dioxide underneath, and there is no oxygen left, and then heat goes on slowly, and then wood turns into charcoal, charcoal. It's not ordinary coal, but it's charred coal. Wood is converted to odun kömürü, okay? So, she discovered that when she analyzed the product, and of course they were all charred, but she also found some small pulses, baklagiller, and some seeds of some plants. And the most important one, she says, wild mustard, yabani hardal, and wild pistachio. And she concluded that they used various herbs to cook food, but they also used some seeds, like today, of course, we use salt, pepper, and many others, but in those days they were limited to certain spices. They use them as condiment. Condiment, something that gives taste to your food. You add it to make it more tasteful. Condiment, additives. So this was an important discussion. It was the first time that we learned that, because we were expecting that people, after discovering how to control fire, they cooked food, but we didn't have evidence. So this is an evidence goes back to 70,000 years before Homo sapiens appeared, before our ancestors appeared. Even Neanderthals cooked food. Okay, so this is the Shenedar cave on Zagros Mountains in Iraq, between Iraq and Iran. Now, the cavemen, of course, lived in caves, but not all of them were cavemen. Some of them lived around. But the thing is that after a while, they came next to rivers or lakes. They preferred to live there, and they preferred to settle there. So when we talk about the caveman, we say hunter-gatherers. Avcı toplayıcı. You know that, right? Avcı toplayıcı, hunter. They travel all the time. They walk around to hunt animals and collect plants as food. If you settle, you will be hungry. You die of hunger. So that's why they were hunters, gatherers. But when they came by rivers and lakes, they found that many birds are coming to drink water, many animals coming. So their hunt was there. The animals were there. And water was there. What else do you need? You have the food, you have the water, right? And you have the forest, because by water you have some trees, you can burn them. You have fire, you have water, you have meat, you have plants. That's all you want. So they settled. And they built small villages. And then, of course, some of those villages grew. And the oldest in the world is Çatalhöyük. Does anyone know about Çatalhöyük? Where is it, and what is the importance of Çatalhöyük? Anybody heard Çatalhöyük before? Ne hatırlıyorsunuz? Anything you remember about Çatalhöyük? Hiçbir şey ya biri sorsa Çatalhöyük nedir ya kardeşim abi abla bize bir anlat dese lise talebesi bir şey anlatmaz mısınız Çatalhöyük'le ilgili? Bunlar şöyle böyle insanlardı çok mühimlerdi. They lived in that village which is a big village. It's between 7,500 down to 6,400. So more than 1,500 years they occupied the oldest village in the world. Okay, let's watch the video. Ne oldu ya? Buraya niye geldik? Yanlış mı bastım? Video. Hay Allah. Kontrol etmiştim halbuki ama burada var mı video? Varsa da ben göremiyorum. Siz görebiliyor musunuz? He?
Yok galiba. Ha evet evet şu.
Sağda nerede?
Aşağıda kalmış. Ha, sağda hocam, tam sağda.
Bu mu acaba? Galiba evet. Demek ki uğraşırken yanlış adrese kalmış bende. İnşallah doğru çıkar bakalım. Ne kadar yavaş ya. Bizim buraya şansımıza hiç ses çıkmıyor ya. Bu da maksimumda, bu da maksimumda. Bir şeyler duyuluyor mu? Ben duyamıyorum.
Duyuyorlar.
He?
Duyuluyor zaten.
İdare ediyor musunuz? Tamam. Anadolu medeniyetlerde oranın kopyası var. Gördünüz mü orada? Bu öküz başlarını. Ölüleri kendi yataklarının altına gömüyorlar. O setin altına gömüyorlar. Okay. Now, have you heard the Iceman Ötzi before? Ötzi, Iceman? Can anybody tell us who he was, what he was, what about him? Ötzi? Ötzi is a natural mummy. It was found in ice, buried in ice. So when you have a dead person in the ice, in Alps or in poles under ice and snow and water, its body turns into a mummy. Well, how come? Cold water, ice. Why should he turn into mummy? When we talk about mummy, it's a dead body, but it can stay in the same shape, same form, for many years, hundreds of years, without being disintegrated. What happens? Do you know what the Egyptians did to make the corpse convert into a mummy? What's the thing that you have to do to make sure that you produce a mummy from a dead person or from a corpse.
Actually, the first thing you done is to remove the actually
Intestinal organs, yeah, and the brain.
Then they actually use a solution or something to prevent the degradation of the structure of the body.
Mhm.
Then they
Do you know any chemical which can do that? Very simple chemical.
I'm not sure, but maybe
Salt. You can use just table salt, right? Pastırma yapar gibi. The idea is to remove the water and perhaps replace it with some oil or something so that you remove, if you remove the water, bacteria cannot grow. So they use sodium nitrate, potassium nitrate because they had lots of carbonate, soda. They had many soda sources. They use soda. Soda also extracts water. And then they put some oils and some various plants to protect the body. The idea is to remove the water. Okay? So when you are in ice, if you put something into your refrigerator, after a couple of weeks it dries because the freezer at the top sucks up all the water vapor. So it dries. Okay? So your mother does not like to leave anything, any dish open or any fruit just there because it will lose the water. So it will lose its taste. So if you want to dry meat, just if you want to make pastırma or something like the dried meat, just salt it, and then after you cured it with salt, you can put it in the refrigerator. It will dry by itself. You don't have to hang it up to dry. Refrigerator is also a drying instrument. You can dry. So ice is the same, because many people think that water does not evaporate at 0 degrees. It does. Even ice evaporates. So at any temperature, you have water molecules escaping from your substance. Therefore, the temperature was very low, so there was no disintegration by bacteria, and also he kept losing water. So he became a mummy. And as it says in the slide, it was found in 1991 in Alps, which is between Austria and Italy. And that portion of Alps is called Ural. That's why the man is called Ötzi. And he had a leather bag. And in the leather bag, he had some herbs, which we know that plant is a good medicine for intestinal parasites. Apparently, he had some intestinal parasites, and he carried it to get rid of those parasites. He used medicine. This is his body, 5,300 years ago, or 3,000 BC, 3,300 BC. Okay, now this is how he was found, in ice, mixture of ice and water. So they are just mountaineers. Accidentally, they found him. Like it looks like as if he's climbing out, you see, but that's not the case. Of course, he's 5,000 years old. So they were lucky mountains to discover it, and they became famous. Now it's in a museum. Mummy is in a museum. But the thing is that we know definitely that 5,000 years ago, people used some herbs for protecting their intestines. Now, when we go back in history, we see that chemistry, pharmacy, medicine, dentistry, they are all mixed up. You do not have just the doctor or the chemist, or, of course, in many cases they called some people doctors, but that doctor was at the same time pharmacist, and at the same time was a chemist, because philosophers, they were expert in various fields. Now, of course, humans used herbs as medicine for thousands of years. That's okay. But it's the first time that we saw that herbs were used as medicine on a written document was produced by Sumerians. Sumerians wrote everything on clay tablets. We are so lucky that they wrote down everything on clay tablets. We know their laws, we know their marriage contracts, we know their medicine, everything. Now, for many years, the scientists in Europe, they said Sumerians were stupid people. They had no doctors. They didn't know anything. Because the historian Herodot wrote that Sumerians did not know the meaning of doctor or medicine. They were so primitive people that if somebody got sick, they asked people around what to do to cure the man. And let me read what Herodot wrote. He says, they bring out all their sick into the streets, for they have no doctors. İlk cümle zaten söylüyor. Adamlarda doktor diye bir şey yok. People who came along offer the sick man advice, either from what they personally have found to cure such complaint, or what they have known someone else, from someone else. No one is allowed to pass by a sick person without asking him what ails him. So they didn't let anyone just go by. They said, please come here and tell us what to do, what should we do? This man is a sick man. But that's a lie. That never happened in Mesopotamia. That was not true. So we see that Herodot is the father of historians, but not everything he wrote down is correct. This is Herodot. He lived around 484 BC and 425 BC. But the thing is that he was born in Bodrum. Var mı aramızda Bodrum? Anybody from Bodrum? No? Okay. Now, of course, for centuries, we didn't know anything about Sumerians because we didn't know that they invented alphabet. They invented how to write. Because we had no evidence. But we were so lucky to discover the library of Assurbanipal. He was the king, a Neo-Assyrian king, and his library was discovered around 1850. So for many, many years, more than 1,500 years, we thought that Sumerians had no doctors because of Herodotus. But when we discovered the clay tablets, 30,000 clay tablets in library of Assurbanipal, we found out that they wrote many clay tablets about medicine. And also the Epic of Gilgamesh. Did you read Epic of Gilgamesh at any time? Do you know anything about Epic of Gilgamesh? I mentioned it before. Can you say something about Epic of Gilgamesh? Anybody knows anything interesting, anything about what's written in Epic of Gilgamesh? Yok mu? Sen bir şey çıkaracaksın galiba.
Şey hatırlıyorum da.
Tabii.
Çok kutsal kitaptaki hikayelere benzer şeyler olduğunu söylemiştik.
Like what? So many stories that we see in Bible or Torah looked very similar. And when they discovered in 1850 these clay tablets, and when they read the Epic of Gilgamesh, all the Jewish people in the world and the Christians, they said, what happened? Did we copy Epic of Gilgamesh to our books? There was a big discussion, but then of course it's settled. So there are many similarities in the stories of Epic. Gilgamesh is efsane, epic. It is a story. It's not a history document. But of course, when you have some epics, efsane, some portions may be correct. But mostly it is the imagination of the author. But we learned a lot from Epic of Gilgamesh. Do you know the basic thing about Epic of Gilgamesh? What is it?
Şey de hatırladım. Bir tane böyle hayvan insan arası bir şey vardı.
Enkidu.
Ha, insana
Çeviriyor. So, Gilgamesh is supposed to be the king. And in those days, everybody was afraid of the gods, many gods. So somehow, according to that story, Gilgamesh made something wrong, and the gods were angry at him, so they wanted to punish him. So they sent an animal like human, a wild person, looked like a man, but is actually animal or aggressive creature. But somehow Gilgamesh mentioned to turn him into normal human, and then they became friends. And what he used was just sesame oil. So he rubbed him with sesame oil, he gave him sesame oil, he became like a normal human. So it's a destan, it's epic. But anyway, okay. So we found, as we said, 30,000 tablets from the excavation, and it was the main part of Assurbanipal's library. As I mentioned here, the big flood, the Prophet Noah Peygamber, and his big ship was written there. So we also discovered that they had doctors, two kinds of doctors. They had Asu and Asipu, two kinds of doctors they had. And the doctors, which are very similar to our doctors today, they used herbal medicine. Of course, they didn't know how to extract some organic compound, effective ingredients from the organic compounds. The problem with the herbal medicine is that many of them contain actually active ingredients to heal a disease. But they also contain other organic compounds which are harmful for your health. So the pharmacists, they extract only the useful organic compound and make drugs from plants. We still do. We extract medicine from plants, but we do not extract everything, just the necessary organic compound. That's the difference. So herbal medicine is good, but you have to be sure that it has lots of side effects. Now here we see a clay tablet. We are lucky that it's in Istanbul. And it is a clay tablet of Sumerians, which gives medical recipes related to poisoning. How you have to cure, which compounds cause death or make you sick, and what you have to do, things like that. So it is a very, there are two main, there are few, but the most important ones are this one and another one, which dates back to the other one dates back to, this is I think 1400 BC, I forgot to write it down. If I'm not mistaken, it's I think 1400 BC or 1450. I'll find out. But the other one dates back to 2400 BC. It's in Pennsylvania Museum. But they were all found in Iraq. Iraq was part of Ottoman Empire. So that's why we have some of them in our museums, but most of them were stolen and taken away. So almost all of the clay tablets of Assurbanipal are now in England in a museum. Now this is the oldest one, 2400 BC. This is in Pennsylvania Museum because the archaeologists were from University of Pennsylvania. You heard about Kramer. Kramer was the most famous Sumerian expert in the world, and he translated almost all of those clay tablets, and some of his students translated Sumerian clay tablets into English. Therefore, he took away many clay tablets, but Ottoman sultans realized that the archaeologists from France or England or Germany or Italy were stealing our architectural material. They prevented it partially. At least they prevented it, so we have some of them in our museums. Otherwise, they would take everything away from Turkey. Now, let's read some of these medicines from the tablets. So we can see that they use some plants, some other material. It says pulverize. Of course, we cannot read every part because some of them are cracked, some of them are broken. Pulverize something, and river clay need clay, çamur. Çamur da bazen kullanılabiliyor ilaçlarda. Knead it with water and honey. Bari tadı güzel olsun diye tabii bal koyuyorlar. Sea oil and hot cedar oil be spread over it. So you have a wound or something, so you make some kind of a merhem or some kind of cream, okay? Another medicine, pulverize dried apple and moon plant, infuse it with kushuma. Kushuma is a plant, I don't know the Turkish name of it. Kushuma wine, it's a kind of a fruit. Gestin, it's called gestin. Let tree oil is zeytinyağı. They used sesame oil 99% of the time. But for them, olive oil was very important because olives did not grow on their land. So they were importing olive oil, so it was very valuable. They thought it was something magical. It was so valuable. So they called it, since it grew on trees, they called it tree oil. And hot cedar oil spread over it. So this is, again, to cure a wound or something. Pulverize dried apple and root of moon plant, dissolve it in beer. Usually they use beer and wine and water to make a solution. Dissolve in beer, let the man drink it. So they make some creams and also drinkable medicine. Another one, pulverize seed of carpenter plant, gum resin of markazi. They also use resins. They thought that resins were very important medicines. And thyme, kekik, dissolve in beer and let the man drink it. A portion, just divide into pieces. Turtle shell, yani break it, powderize it. Uhulu, deniz börülcesi söylemiştim galiba. Salt, cassia, sinemaki, it's a very important medicine even today. Knead them together, mix them together, powdered with asophotibia, it's a bitkisel reçine, again, a kind of resin. Moist them in high quality beer, boiling water. The reason they say high quality wine, high quality beer, this is to say ordinary people must not try to make medicine. Only the doctors or the pharmacists must make it. So they make it, it's important thing that they know. So they say best beer, best wine. It doesn't mean anything. What's the meaning of best beer, best wine? Anyway, but the idea is to scare people, not to try to make medicine. So you let them buy from you. Okay. So moist them in high quality beer, boiling water, sprinkle them on the ailing organ. Again, there's a wound or there's a problem with an organ. Rub tree oil, again olive oil, over it and add pulverized fir. So we see that olive oil is so important that they use it as a last ingredient. Köknar kozalağı tozu, fir. Another one. Pulverize, so purify and pulverize skin of water snake. Yani yılanın attığı deri ne işe yarayacak? İşte Allah büyük bir işe yarar diyor adam yani. Purify and pulverize this skin of water snake. Pour water over it. Root of myrtle, mersin bitkisi. Pulverize uhulu, börülce, deniz börülce. Barley, arpa. Pulverize fir resin, köknar reçinesi. Boil and filter the liquid. Wash the ailing organ with liquid. Rub tree oil on it. See, olive oil, again the last. Purify, pulverize of cow manure, dışkı. Pour water, myrtle, star plant, root, boil, filter, wash with the liquid, add potassium nitrate, mineral. They have potassium around. And add something. So this cracked, so we cannot read all the details of the medicine. Now, we mentioned about the sinemaki, and castor oil. Castor oil, Hint yağı. So it is the earliest laxative used by Sumerians, and we still use it today. Sinemaki yaprağı. Senna, they call senna leaves. Now this is the photograph of Assurbanipal's, part of course, Assurbanipal's library, so you can see the clay tablets here. They were all excavated from the lands of Ottoman Empire. But of course, if they stayed here, we don't know that some people would destroy them, Gavurjad or something. They would break them all apart. And when they excavate, they don't know the value of what's excavated. Maybe I told you the story that I was in Alacahöyük. You know Alacahöyük, Hittite city? Özür dilerim. Kapatmayı unuttuk, şunu kapatayım. And I wanted to see the stones and steles left from Hittites. I asked the villager, I said, there are some carvings on rock. Where can I find them? He said, I don't know. And I know that it's there in the village. And somebody was passing, said, oh, he is the manager of the museum, ask him. And I asked him, he says, yeah, it's right just behind that wall. I was next to the rocks, the steles, where there were carvings of Hittites, important. We have the copies in our museum. The man says, I don't know. He doesn't care about the importance of the ruins left from Hittites. He lives in the same village. He said, ask him, he's the manager of the museum. So sometimes the humanity is lucky, not us, not as Turkish people, but we say that maybe it's better that they stole it and took it away, so they take good care of it, because they would just break them up. Because you know that they broke the faces of all statues, because they don't want to see any statues or any human being, any kind of human carved on a rock or stone, whatever, or clay tablet. So it's difficult to say which is correct. Whether we should not let them steal, or we should close our eyes, let them steal. I don't know. But at least we are lucky that after Republic, after Atatürk, he collected all the important excavation material, and then they established a good museum. I don't remember the name of one of the padishahs. He became smart enough to go around and inspect the foreign archaeologists from Italy or from England or from Germany or whatever, and they didn't let him to steal. So towards the end of Ottoman Empire, they established a museum. But it was too late, because 90% were stolen. But anyway, what can we do? Okay. So this is our Assurbanipal. He's an interesting king, a Neo-Assyrian king. And the important thing is, the reason I put this carving on my slide is that if you look at him, you see there are two pens here. Normally, no kings in Mesopotamia or Anatolia could read or write. They didn't care about reading and writing. They thought it would be the job of the clerks or scribes. But his father told him that he should learn how to read and write, and he became the first king in Mesopotamia who could read and write. Because if a king wanted to send a letter to another one, they called the scribe. He says, write down my message. He wrote down on a clay tablet and then send it to the other king, either on a wax tablet or on a clay tablet. But he learned how to read and write. Of course, but unfortunately, he's a very cruel king. He tortured people, even dead people. He tortured even dead people. He was very cruel. He was a successful king, but he was not a polite, and he was not very humanitarian. So when he won a war against the Israelites, they killed many soldiers. But to announce or to show to his people that they killed many enemies, according to them, they put the corpse on sticks, kazığa oturttular, ölüleri sergiledi. But in those days, when Egyptians had war with Hittites, when they killed some Hittite soldiers, they cut their hand and then took it back to Egypt to show that we killed so many people as an evidence. So during the war and afterwards, people were very wild in those days. Now, when we look at the people in Mesopotamia, and even the doctors, a group of doctors, when somebody got sick, they said, okay, he made something wrong. He upset the gods. That's the reason. If you upset gods, you get sick. It's punishment of the gods. That was the main belief. So therefore, they prayed the gods to forgive that person, the family, and the person himself, the patient. And of course, they had various gods. Some gods were like devil. Some gods were like angels. So they were fighting with each other, etc. Even when you read the epics of Greeks, they have similar gods, similar stories. God maybe sometimes come down to the earth, marry with girls, or two gods marry, things like that. They act like, as I said before, they act like human beings, but they have power. And therefore, you had to pray the gods to forgive your relative. If your father is sick, you said, okay, my father did something wrong, and he upset the god, so I have to apologize from the god. I have to make the god happy to forgive my father so he can be healthy again. So he has to sacrifice an animal or give some wine or give some food to the gods. And then you pray, you hope that your father or your relative will get well. So they had some rituals, so they prayed, things like that. But there was a god named Gula. She was the goddess of healing illnesses. There were, as I mentioned before, there were two kinds of doctors in Mesopotamia and also Hittites. One is called Asipu, the other one was Asu, so Dr. A and Dr. B. Asipu was the man who believed that you upset the gods, and he knew the techniques of praying to God, making sure that God forgive your friend or your patient. But Asu was not like that. He was just like doctors that we talked about. He used herbs, some minerals, some salts, some compounds, some plant pieces, roots, whatever fruits, prepared the medicine and then gave it to the patient. So one doctor was to pray gods to forgive the person. So Sumerians and Hittite people, they use both of the doctors. Now this is Gula, the goddess of healing illness, and she's mentioned to have a doctor. It's a dog. So they made statues of, or they made figures or carvings of rocks of gods all the time. And as you can see, God looks like just a human being, just a big and strong. Now, the hymn, Ilahi, of Goddess Gula, so of course she didn't write it. The Sumerians wrote a hymn for Gula instead of her. Supposed to be, she's saying that, supposedly she's, I am a physician, I can heal. I carry around all healing herbs, I drive away disease. A gird, süsleme, myself, I gird myself with leather bag. That's why the doctors always carry leather bag. Even today, I don't know, maybe not now. Do they come with a leather bag anymore at home? Var mı böyle çantayla gelen doktor? Ama plastiktir herhalde. When I was a child, all the doctors had a leather bag and all the same shape, something like that, if I remember. Of course, it had a handle here, and maybe here. They had a black leather bag. When you saw that, you know that he was a doctor. Well, anyway, so I geared myself with a leather bag containing health-giving incantations, büyüler. Incantation, büyü malzemesi. I carry text which brings recovery. I give cures to mankind. So she cures, that's how she cures humans. My dressing, pansuman, alleviates the wound. My soft bandage relieves the sick. So she says she put some medicine and then put bandages to cure the person. Now, as I said, Asipu was a doctor who tried to understand which god or demon, Iblis, was angry at the patient. So when he was called, he used various methods to convince the gods to forgive the patient. And Asipu, as I mentioned, he speaks to God, and then he promises some sacrifice animals, things like that. And usually the family of the patient had to sacrifice an animal, give some wine, give some food. But of course, you know that meat or that wine or whatever would not go to God, but probably doctor's man was there and he was stealing it afterwards, definitely. Okay. But he convinced them. She says, you have to sacrifice an animal. And these Asipus, they were like shaman. You know, shamans also, you know, they shave their heads, they play a kind of a drum, and then they pray to God not to harm people, things like that. So they are like shamanism. This is the incantation bowl. In Turkish, dualı su. So you put water, you see here is the demon. You put some water and then Ashupu prays to God, and then you drink the dualı su from that container. He says, this is an important bowl. It is incantation. He puts some water or some mixture of liquid and prays, and then he lets the man drink it, or the patient drink it. As I said, Asipu recommends family to pray, to sacrifice animals and give some presents to God. And then he also gives an amulet, muska. So, bilmiyorum, hala etrafında muska takan var mı arkadaşınız? Hiç gördünüz mü yurtta filan? Muska takan var mı? Üçgen böyle, boynuna takarlar. Yok mu artık? Yeah, when I was a child, everybody used to put muska. You go to a hoja, he writes something on a strip, and then he rolls it up like a triangle, and then puts in a leather case. This is muska, and then you put it around your neck. That protects you. Whatever he writes, we don't know. He writes something and he gives it to you. He sells it actually to you. Bazen Türk filmlerinde görürsün böyle hani pehlivanlar falan olur. Burada muska, hiç görmediniz mi böyle güçlü pehlivan? Burada üçgen, muska o yani işte. Hani adam kendine güvenemez, diyor ki gene de hocanın duası beni kurtarır ya da beni işte şey yapar, şampiyon yapar. Okay. So he gave amulets. And then he recited, he prayed God, incantations. If it doesn't help, of course, 99% of the time it doesn't help. Or the man was about to just get well, he gets well, and he says, you see, I did it. But 90% of the time, of course, he was not sex, but he got his money. Then they called Asu. Asu came, and then, of course, he behaved just like a modern doctor, but the only thing is that he did not use modern medicine, he used plants and herbs. And mixtures of some salts or some minerals, he mixed up his medicine. So Asu, he came and he prepared his medicine. After he examined it and listened to what the problem was, so he was partly educated because he learned his technology or his method of healing from a master. So doctorship was something like master and assistant. So he prepares a medicine, let's say some ingredients, as we see clay tablets, and he asks family to bring some materials. If they don't have it, he says go to a shop and buy and bring it over here. Things like as I said, some plants, some minerals, oils, butter, milk, beer, wine, animal parts like skin or shell, fats, etc. So whatever he thinks that would be necessary, he gathers them all. So the more he put together, people believe in him more. So if you just mix 3 ingredients, they say, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. But if you put 10 or 15, say, this is very important. That's even more important. You just try to convince the people that your medicine will work. But sometimes it worked, or sometimes it works. So he sometimes healed the wounds by washing, applying plaster, merhem, and bandage. So he, as I said, he acted or he practiced his profession similar to our doctors. Some creams and then some bandage. Also, in some cases, he had to cut the healing organ because they also learned how to cure some diseases or some problems by surgery. So they were also surgeons. Now, they were very influential, especially these Asus, who are using herbal medicine. And they were so influential that there were some proverbs, atasözü, that they learned from the doctors. It says, he who eats too much cannot sleep. So they learned from the doctor, it became an atasözü. Another one says, if a man eats sesame oil, he will have gas in his tummy. Gaz yapar. Bilmiyorum, yaptığını zannetmiyorum ama her nedense öyle karar vermiş. Okay. A doctor lived in 670 BC. His name was Adat Sumu Ushur. He was the doctor of Neo-Assyrian king Asarhaddon. I'll show his picture or carving on a rock. He prescribed a medicine to the doctor. He says, eating of bread and drinking of wine will soon remove the illness of the king. So the king was under depression. He was not eating, he was not drinking, maybe he was in love or he lost a war. He was in depression. He says, eating of bread and drinking of wine will soon remove the illness of the king. God's advice is to be heeded, relax. You see, because if you are in depression, you cannot sleep well. So you have to relax, you have to try to relax yourself by sleeping. Restlessness, not eating, not drinking, disturb the mind. And not drinking, mind and add to illness. So if you are in depression, if you continue not to eat, not to drink, not to sleep, your depression will get deeper and deeper. You will be more sick, which is true. That's what we say today. Same thing. Our psychologists say the same thing. Say eat, drink, and sleep well. So you'll be all right. Well, depression is the illness of everybody in the world. Everyone, once or twice or many times, will be in depression. That's natural. But if you know what to do, then you can take care of it. So the doctors in those days knew that depression was related to not to eating, not to drinking, and not to sleeping. Because the result and the cause is the same. When you are in depression, you don't like to eat, you don't like to drink, you don't like to sleep. You cannot sleep anyway. But you have to reverse it. Okay. Yeah, restlessness, not eating, not drinking, disturb the mind and add to illness. In this matter, the king should listen to the servant. Yani krala diyor ki söyledik dinle artık, yani bu akıl mantık böyle diyor. Yani şu kölene, şu senin uşağına lafını dinle. This is the king. He doesn't look like he's depression, but he was once in a while. This is the king, Esarhaddon, around 600 BC, Neo-Assyrian king. Another doctor named Marduk Sakinsumi, he was a doctor also. He wrote the following prescription for the illness of the king. Similar. Another doctor, he says, his illness will be cured and he will be just fine. The king must wait and eat only what's appropriate. Just relax, eat the proper food, you will be all right. You will get rid of the depression. Two doctors say the same thing. Okay. Now, a doctor recommends something which will be harmful, or if you have a disease, he says, don't eat this vegetable. If you have this disease, if you have this physical problem, don't eat this or that. So he recommends patients not to eat leek and coriander kiş, leek pırasa, and turnip, turp. And he says, leek and coriander, these are harmful if he whose eyes are sick should not eat them. I don't know, but you can see that. I mean, it's a wrong decision for the doctor, but why leek and coriander would harm your eyes if you have problem in eyes? Maybe he observed somebody, he had some problem in his eyes, and then he asked, what did he eat? They said, leek and coriander, and then he said, oh, maybe that's the reason. So you can see that most of the things they say was not correct. Some were correct, but not all. And turnip, he whose heart is sick should not eat turnip. So you know that when you have gas in your tummy, in your stomach, sometimes it hurts you. You have pain. But many people cannot understand the pain, the difference between the pain of your stomach and the heart. So many people having heart attack, they think that I ate too much, it's my stomach, but it's just a heart attack. So in those days it was the same. They did not, so he says, because the man probably died because of heart attack or something. So he said, if you eat turnip, if you have heart trouble, don't eat, because you will have actually pain in the stomach, but he thinks that it will harm your heart, which is not true, of course. But at least he knows that they are similar. The pain in the stomach because of gas and the heart attack, they give similar pain in the same place on your chest. So we have a long prescription of a Babylonian doctor. I'll try to read it as soon as I can. This is about the blood in his saliva or in his sputum, balgam. He says, if a man with his sputum balgam gives blood, kanlı balgam geliyorsa, is ill with internal stricture, congestion, he is affected with heat and is sick to his stomach and intestine, the medicine is leaves of skill, leaves of mastakal, leek fruit, pomegranate fruit, halupus seeds, leaves of euphrates poplar, and boil them down with cashew water in container. Even the container, they specify as a special container. Then press out, filter or something, with a cloth bind on day and night, make it boil water, wash him with it, let him drink these with, you wash him and then he drinks also. Or oil makes him vomit, so you let him drink some kind of oil and then you let him vomit. Let him eat and drink the remedy. You don't understand what it is, but that is the recipe. He doesn't know how it will work, but maybe in one patient out of 100 it worked. So these recipes are not, of course, as efficient as the recipes today. Now, there is a clay tablet about the pregnant woman and delivering baby. When a woman is pregnant and she's about to deliver, they call a midwife to deliver the baby. They also used to invite Asu, just in case that there is some problem, but Asu, the doctor, never dealt with the baby. He was there just in case of emergency, if she's bleeding or something, whatever. But there was always a midwife, Ebe. Now, sometimes the lady did not want to have the baby, and she wanted the doctor, Asu, to drop the baby, so he gave some plants as medicine so that she can drop the baby. But if she dropped the baby secretly from her family and his husbands, then she would be punished. So if the family decides that she is right to drop the baby, then they call Asu. Asu helps her to drop the baby, but she cannot do it by herself secretly. It was a crime. In all Sumerian laws, without the permission, she could not drop a baby. Now this is an amulet for pregnant women, because they thought that there is a female deity named Lamashtu. Lamashtu was a terrible god, bad god, like a devil. She was the enemy of the babies, newly born babies or babies in the tummy of the mother. And they harmed the mother, and then they stole the baby from the tummy of the mother. Of course, that's a belief, but it has nothing to do. But what can you do? It was a belief, so they had an amulet to protect the woman. And Lamashtu was also kidnapped the babies even after the baby was born. When she was breastfeeding the baby, he came and stole the baby from the mother. But how did he come in? How he lost? But of course, sometimes these things are because of the mother. Probably when mother loses the baby, she says a devil came or Iblis came and stole the baby or something. So you are not sure what happens to pregnant women. Sometimes she drops the baby secretly and says, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. The bad God came and stole my baby. It was in my tummy yesterday. Today, when I woke up, it was gone. I didn't do anything, because she has to protect herself. So, but there was a God like this, Lamashtu. Now, the incantation view of against Lamashtu says, "Great is the daughter of heaven who tortures babies. Her hand is a net," file gibi, ağ gibi, avlıyor yani. "Her embrace is that," sarılırsa sana gittin, öldün yani. Aman sana sarılmasın. "She is cruel, raging, angry and predator," parçalayıcı, predator, yok edici. "A runner, a thief is the daughter of heaven," a thief, still babies. "She touches the bellies of women in labor. She pulls out the pregnant woman's baby." Buradan anlıyoruz zaten. Kadın çocuğu düşürmüş, yalan söylüyor. Diyor ki vallahi billahi geldi, adam götürmüş, haberim yok. "The daughter of heaven is one of the gods, her brothers, with no child of her own." She doesn't have a child, the God doesn't have a child, so that's why she wants to steal babies from all the pregnant women, as much as she can do. "Her head is a lion head. Her body is a donkey's body. She roars like a lion. She constantly howls like a demon dog." İblis köpek gibi havlar. Yani hem aslan gibi bağırıyor, hem iblis köpek gibi bağırıyor. So this is the picture or painting of Lamashtu. Lion head. She also flies, and the body is like a donkey. Now you can see the wings. You see, the gods had wings to fly. The angels had wings, just like the stories in Greek mythology. Melekler kanatlı. Now, I don't know if you know the story about father and son in an epic of Greeks. I forgot the name of the father and son, but the story is so that somehow father and son were in jail in a castle, and somehow they wanted to escape, so they built wings. Did you hear this story? Tell us.
Actually, they want to create a wing and try to escape from it.
Yeah, by flying, making the wing, and then they'll fly. How did they make the wings?
Actually, I'm not sure, but they collect some
Feather
feather
from birds.
birds around, and
They use something to attach. What kind of material they used? Beeswax. They used beeswax to attach them to make a big wing. Father and son, they made big wings made out of feathers. Okay, then what happened? They both had wings.
yeah,
They start flying.
he started to actually fly to higher and
Higher and higher and higher, up to
the sun. And
they approached the sun.
and the actual wax start to melt. Then,
Yeah, beeswax started to melting because of the heat of the sun.
Then he dropped against sea, if I don't remember, to the sea and the dying sea.
Yeah,
The name of the actually story was the story of Icarus, I think.
yeah, Icos, yeah. So, you see, the imagination, of course, if you don't have the knowledge, your imagination is limited. Now, even the stupid child cannot believe the story, because if you try to make a big wing from the feathers of the birds with beeswax, it will not even carry its own weight. It will just break apart. And also, you fly so high that you go out of the atmosphere, you pass the moon, you pass all the other planets, you approach to the sun, there is no air, the temperature is minus 200 degrees centigrade, and when you get close to the sun, you get hot. So, if you imagine without the knowledge, then you act like a stupid, So when we hear some of these epics, you can understand that they didn't have any knowledge. They had no idea about the universe. They didn't know anything about the physical properties of the materials. So there are many stories that some people made wings and then flew. Also in Italy, you remember that? He flew from Galata, and also in Istanbul, Hazarfen Çelebi made the same thing. He flew from Galata to other side of the Bosphorus. And then the Sultan sent him to jail. Everything is lie. Because they hear something, I'll do it. He cannot do anything. And then he comes, I did it, I flew it, and they put me in jail. Everybody believes it. Ne Çelebi'ydi? Hazarfen Çelebi. Hazarfen means inventor of 1,000 things. They read the story, they saw some drawings, and then said, I can do it. He worked hard and hard, he couldn't do it, but then he started to lie. Same in Italy. So he made it and he flew from Pisa Tower. If you ask elementary school student, he says, that's stupid.
Hocam yani Hazarfen Çelebi'nin hikayesi yalan mı?
Nasıl doğru olabilir ki? Yaptığı bu. Bugün hava kuvvetleri falan hala onu kullanıyor, Hazarfen havaalanı. What can we do? Kötü bir şey değil, efsanelerimize sahip çıkalım. Ona bir şey demiyorum. Ama ilkokul çocuğunun güleceği bir şeyden bahsediyoruz. Yani siz de duyduğunuzda çok aptalca bulmuşsunuzdur ama söyleyemiyorsun yani. Herkes biliyor, kabul ediyor. Her kabul edilen doğru değil ki. İşte bakın, meleklerin niye ihtiyacı var ki? Kanada. Yani melekler göklerde kabulde. Kanat niye gerekir ki? Yani o kadar Tanrı'nın etrafındaki güçlü melekler bunlar. Kanat gerekmez çünkü efsanelerde kanat görüyorlar. Diyorlar kanatlıdır herhalde. Çünkü başka türlü uçulamayacağını, kuşu görüyor, başka türlü uçulamaz. O yüzden efsanelere hoşumuza gidiyor, güzel hikayeler. Ama bilimsel açıdan da baktığımızda en azından kendi kendimize bunu test etmemiz lazım. Ya bu ne acaba, bu ne yani diye. Sen inanıyor muydun gerçekten Hazarfen Çelebi'ye?
Çocukken inanıyordum.
Şimdi? Beni dinlemeden önce de inanıyor muydun?
Yok yani ilkokul.
Mecbursun yani çünkü öyle güzel anlatılıyor ki. Kim inanmaz yani? Hoşumuza da gidiyor ya. Bizim adamlar uçmuş kardeşim diyoruz. Değil mi? Hoşumuza gidiyor yani. İlk uçan biziz filan yani. Ama bunlar bize bütün ülkelerde, bütün milletlerde, bütün kavimlerde böyle kahramanlık hikayeleri var. Güzel şeyler. Ama da bilim insanı olarak da bakmamız lazım yani.
Hatta ilkokul öğretmenimiz şey demişti, işte İtalya'da da Hazarfen Çelebi'den görüp ondan sonra
Ya.
onu taklit edip...
O adı yapan adam hangi yıl yaşadı Hazarfen ondan bile haberi yok ki. Herkes bizden çaldı kardeşim. Bilmiyorlardı. Hepsi bizden öğrendi. İlk biz uçtuk. Peki de kardeşim sonra niye uçak yapmadınız yani? Niye roket yapmadınız? Başka bir tane daha var. Arkasına roket bağladı uçtu. Ki ne o da başkasıydı değil mi? Hazarfen mi roket bağladı yoksa roket?
Yok hocam.
O kimdi o? Başkası mıydı o? Pardon. Roket Çin'de adam sandalyeye oturdu. Arkasına havai fişek icat ettikleri için havai fişeklere bağladı, uçtu. Paraşütü vardı, güzelce indi. Ve bu galiba bizde de biri denedi bunu ya. Hı?
Sadece Çin'dekini biliyorum ben ama bizdekini hatırlamıyorum.
Çin'deki kesin. Oradan işte duyuyor. Yani roket havaya gidiyor kardeşim nasıl uçarız? Sandalyeye oturalım, bağlayalım bir de paraşüt alalım. Ya kardeşim sen kaç metrekare paraşütün seni taşıyacağından haberin yok. O füze hiç attınız mı bilmiyorum. Füze böyle gider. Böyle dönerek gider füze. Zannediyor ki dümdüz çıkacak. Zaten havaya fişek attığın zaman fır dönüyor. Ondan 20 tane bağladığın zaman senin her yerin yanar zaten. Sıcaklık 1200-1300 derece. Ama hikaye güzel. İlk Çinliler yapmış, helal olsun. İlk neredeyse uzaya gidecekmiş diyebilirsiniz. Evet. Peki bir ara verelim.